Hey guys, welcome to the Immersive Playground with XTG, where we discuss experiential tech, what is here, what is coming, and how to integrate it with global partners and clients. I'm your host, Brandon Brunhammer, and my co-host,
Garrett Keratin.
Welcome, and let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody. We have a very special episode for you today. In studio, we have our very own Julian Philips. He is our Senior Vice President and Managing Director of the Experience Technology Group. Welcome, Julian.
Garrett, great to be here.
Awesome to have you. So let's just jump right into it. Again, our group is the Experience Technology Group. Our first question and topic is, why does the experience part of that matter?
What's fascinating, Garrett, is that we're sitting here almost 2 years after we went into lockdown through the global pandemic. And a lot of people have been very much talking about what is the impact of the pandemic and what are we going to do to get ourselves back to a sense of normality.
Yep.
And I think to an extent we have to, if we can, just for this moment, imagine that the pandemic didn't really happen, just for this moment, and actually start to reflect on the fact that the world was changing many years before the global pandemic came along.
Fair point.
And what it did do, however, is it did actually highlight a lot of the challenges we were having and the transitions we were going into, but also really spotlight the need for us to accelerate change. Mm-hmm. So there has actually been a big shift towards experience and the human-centered design that has actually been happening in many walks of life and in the workplace for many years prior to the pandemic. But now we've started to realize that it really does matter. And the reason that it matters is this is about people, and people in the way that they see the world, interact with the world. And I think from a technology perspective, we have to sort of shift our mindset away from designing for function and designing for platforms and really start to now design for that human experience. And that is the way that we're actually going to really, truly unlock the full potential of people. Mm-hmm. So experience does matter. But actually, we've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah, we have.
But I think there are many ways that we can look to accelerate that and to unlock just masses of potential.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic, we were already trying to push towards experience. We had a lot of people coming to us asking for what's the next thing. Definitely the pandemic, I think, actually accelerated some of that change because people had to shift focus to, well, some of us aren't getting the normal day-to-day experience we're used to, so how do we reconnect everybody again? And so we've had to really be nimble and be creative about our approaches to some of the solutions. And then now that we're coming back to the workplace more, I think everybody has more of appreciation for the experience, so it's definitely let us expand that conversation.
Yeah, I think it comes back down to a lot of comments that have been made about real estate and how the real estate market is going to completely change. I don't necessarily think it's the real estate application that's changing. I think it's the experience within the buildings to draw individuals back after working from home.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to the real estate community, the fact is that most architects and real estate folks are planning only a very small reduction in workplace over the next 5 to 10 years. What they are, however, predicting is a dramatic change of use as the kind of applications that we look at real estate actually change. So we have now accepted that there are many activities that we can effectively do from home that we do not need to commute into the office for.
Right.
But when we do come in, there is a need for us to elevate the overall experience we have and change the way that we're actually collaborating with each other. I think one of the factors that's also true is that we don't really know what's going to happen. And everybody is still very much trying to figure this out. And there is no right or wrong answers, but I think there are some trends. Mm-hmm. And one key trend that I did want to sort of discuss is this global experiment that we all did around the world in March 2 years ago, sent everybody back to their homes and to remote working. Yep. But it wasn't just the workplace. It was schools and education. Mm-hmm. It was retail. It was a whole range of different, in sports and entertainment. We all had to have a remote experience of what was actually going on.
Right.
And we actually learned quite a bit through that. And certainly as far as the workplace is concerned, we learned how to develop an asynchronous work pattern as opposed to synchronous. And what we mean by that is synchronous is where we're all in the same place at the same time, and we have an experience all at the same place at the same time. And so the whole way we've been designing experiences has predominantly been synchronous.
Right.
And that's the same for the workplace as it is in entertainment and sports and live performance. And now we've started to realize that the asynchronous style, where we can be in different places in different time zones and actually touching and feeling a shared experience, but not necessarily all at the same time, becomes a huge opportunity.
Right.
But we have to now learn how to design asynchronously.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the major challenge and opportunity we have. But of course, this isn't new.
Yeah.
If you go to the world of education,
Mm-hmm.
they've a huge amount of academic research that's been done 20 odd years ago about asynchronous learning. And we've actually had a long period of time to actually learn about what works and what doesn't work. And so there's a huge wealth of knowledge and applied learning about what we can take from the world of education and move that into other spheres. I think a great example is, what happens in retail right now.
Yeah.
If you think about the overall retail experience, it's very much an asynchronous experience.
Yeah.
If you think about the traditional retail model, we would build shops and we would populate those shops with products, and we would attract people to come in and walk through the shop and actually look and browse and touch and feel, and then make that transaction there and then. That is a synchronous purchasing experience.
Right.
But what happens now is we get onto our phones and our browsers and we start hunting around for various different things. We start experimenting maybe with a little bit of augmented reality on a phone, so we can do 3D visualization of what those clothes look like or that product looks like. We do lots of background research, and we might actually go into a retail store so that we can actually touch it and feel it, but not necessarily buy it there and then, because actually we go back and say, right, I've now decided, I've touched it and felt it, and I'm now going to go back online and I'm going to purchase it. So if you're a retail planner, you don't now think about footfall and transactions in your retail store. You think about optimizing the experience that people have so that you can own that product loyalty or that brand loyalty to make sure that they're actually going to specify your products and what have you, however they end up purchasing it through whatever channel.
Now, from a retail perspective, when you're looking at the experiences, do you feel that there's more knowledge and wealth starting to be generated from the ideology of, if I create this wow experience, this overwhelming experience within the retail, that patrons are more likely to purchase in store than going home, or having the idea where, trust me, I'm guilty of this. Everybody's guilty of this, looking on Amazon to see if you can get it cheaper and then going to ask if you can price match. But I feel like if there's a true experience and you're engaged with the product, I feel like there's a less of a desire to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, retailers are not going to miss the opportunity to capture that sale there and then. But if you look at the way that immersive retail is being designed right now, it isn't about driving footfall to that single point of transaction. It is about trying to create a journey and a brand experience that is not just going to serve for that moment in time.
Sure.
Even though it will, they might convert $100 to $200 to $300. But what they really want you to do is, when you're leaving that store, the overall impression and experience you have is just amazement and loyalty to that particular brand. So the next time you have an opportunity to purchase, through whatever channel you do that, even if it's online, you're going to go back to that brand and that loyalty. So it does have a dual purpose, but it's that ever lasting brand experience that they really want.
I think from a brand experience and the research and the knowledge of who does well with the experience is jewelry stores and watch manufacturers. I mean, you think about it. You walk into the intent is that you're only there for maybe one item, and even if you're there to browse, you still get that level of class treatment when you go in, and that's the experience. And I think that the driving experience, even with sports apparel, and as we start to go down the chain of what else is going to be purchased, those experiences are wanting to become more relevant.
Yeah, and hence why you have this massive luxury watch collection, Brandon. You've obviously swallowed that one hook, line, and sinker.
Well,
So you mentioned entertainment and sports as well, and of course we're starting to see the asynchronous experience happening there too. If again, we all missed watching live sports in the last couple of years, but so we did what we've been doing for many years, is watching it on TV and what have you. But as we're starting to gather again, it's really fascinating to actually see how the fan experience is not just about what you see in real time happening on the pitch, on the field. It is actually happening with your digital devices that you actually have with you when you are in the stadium.
Right.
Because now we're consuming a huge amount of data and absorbing a lot of particular views and perspectives as the game is actually going on right now. And that is further developing as well through augmented reality overlays and various other different things as well. So again, I think in every field we're looking at right now, whether we're thinking about our traditional synchronous design process for experience, we now have to start layering in these asynchronous elements. And I think really, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think the biggest opportunity we have for asynchronous is really thinking about a new actor now in this. Because if you think about synchronicity, it's all about people and place and time. Now we have these digital agents that are actually coming in and actually providing a huge amounts of information and context and perspective and content, as well as insight that can actually layer in to our experience without us actually having any control over that, sometimes scarily, but also enriching the experience without us having to really do anything. And I think this is really what's going to unlock a huge amount of potential. Now, of course, we're seeing that playing out massively in the workplace.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So if you think about something just like Microsoft Teams, for example, some people see it as a platform where you meet everybody online with video and audio and you can do chat, which is pretty much a synchronous activity. But actually what's happening in the background is a huge amount of data pooling and in AI that is actually generating a significant amount of insight and automation, which is enhancing that overall experience. So, for example, in the morning, like me, you probably get an email from Viva, which is reminding you of the meetings you have that day, but not only doing that, actually saying, oh, by the way, you might need these following documents relating to that meeting that's actually coming up. And here's some emails that were actually, you discussed the context of that particular meeting, do some background and actually research. And so we're seeing a major shift now in that we think about workplace workflow is that meetings actually are getting shorter.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to reduce the amount of time we spend in a meeting because we're coming better prepared with better information and with better insights, and we can use our time more productively and more collaboratively. We're also enhancing the meeting experience by being able to record it and transcribe it. So people who are working asynchronously that might not have been able to be there in that room at that time can actually view the content and the transcription as it is ascribed to people as well. And actually get a huge amount out of that without having to physically be there. So there are huge upsides and potential in what we can do by layering in not only the asynchronous workflow, but these digital agents that are actually acting to help organize and better improve the overall experience. So what we have to do, however, as technology designers with our partners out there, is shift our mindset from just thinking about synchronous design to thinking about asynchronous as well. That doesn't mean synchronous goes away, but we have to now start to embrace the asynchronous too. And that probably brings us onto the conversation of the metaverse and what does all that mean and what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, it was interesting. We just came back from South by Southwest and the metaverse was everywhere. It was the topic. And what's interesting with that is more so the conversation was, is it here to stay? How are retailers using it? They're buying up real estate within the metaverse. What are they going to be utilizing it for? And some of the concepts that were brought through were actually extremely functional. You're talking about someone who potentially only works from a home situation, but it gives them the availability to walk into a store. Say Kroger, they do a lot of delivery things. They don't actually have stores here in Florida, but they do delivery here in Florida. One of the cool things is that conceptually is being able to deliver a product experience, walking through a Kroger store in the metaverse, ordering something and having it delivered to your house. Where it gets one step further is using that AI data from Kroger, where you're looking on the shelves, what you're actually purchasing and why you're purchasing it from a development perspective. So it's not just a gaming engine environment, a virtual universe. It is actually able to be utilized for data research, and it's really easy to generate that data.
Look, retailers have been using cameras in store and advanced analytic engines for years,
Right.
trying to actually observe buyer behavior and shopper behavior. The opportunity to now do that in the metaverse expands that significantly, but also clearly you have a much broader, more diverse data pool to work from that enables you to get even more better insights without necessarily the capital investment required
Right.
in physical space. So I think we're going to see that model playing out in a whole range of different markets and verticals right now. And I think it's something that we have to embrace. You know, when I was saying about the sort of difference between designing for synchronous and asynchronous, I think, you know, let's just take some of the things that we do as XTG quite a lot. We design and build innovation centers, experience centers,
Yep.
where our customers are bringing their customers to help, you know, show the future of where they're headed and what they're thinking about the future. And so when we're designing that, we have to think at a number of levels. Number one, how can we optimize the synchronous experience?
Yeah.
So those people walking physically through that space at that time have to be wowed and amazed with that amazing experience. We also now have to design for the fact that some people will be actually remotely joining that tour synchronously. So they are going to be either through a robot that is actually, you know, being their digital twin, if you like, walking through,
Avatar.
that they're actually experiencing the same thing that people are physically, but they're actually doing it remote. So that's another layer. Then we have our asynchronous layer, where people are actually joining at a separate time and almost like a self-managed tour where they're physically and virtually going through that experience, not at the same time as physical people.
Right.
And then you have the metaphysical layer, where we're now starting to think about how do we create a complete different meta universe to create that experience. So, you know, it's daunting when you think about the amount of complexity potentially.
Right.
But I think the important thing is if we understand what the key trends are, we actually understand what the reason why this is important and the potential of what it can actually do, then we can start at least planning how we do that. But we have to shift our thinking.
Right.
We have to start thinking in a much more diverse way than the way that we've done before. And that creates bravery and courage and a little bit of, a huge amount of experimentation, and also not fearing failure, because
Right.
we're not going to get it right all of the time. And we are going to have to start playing in this immersive playground to try and figure out what's going to work and what's not.
100%. Well, Julian, we appreciate you coming today and just having a chat with us just about new things that are emerging. If you like this episode, feel free to comment down below. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, and appreciate you guys for being here, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you, Julian. Appreciate it.